Hey, this is Randall with Shadow Creek Overland, and welcome to 4x4 Canada Podcast, your stop for information on Canadian distributors, manufacturers of overland products, adventurers, off-roaders, and the stories behind the rigs.
Hey, everybody. I am your host, Wes.
And I'm your host, Trisha.
And that was a great introduction, Randall. That was perfect. This is our first time having a guest do the introduction. So,
thank you. This is the first time I've ever been on a podcast or done an interview.
We're off to a good start. So, definitely appreciate you taking the time to spend with us tonight. And we definitely want to get more into Shadow Creek Overland, the meaning behind that, your kick-ass ZR2 rig, and about the overlanding and four-wheeling in Western Canada. Got a couple quick things to get through first. In case you guys didn't hear it, our interview with Sherry from Sonny and Cher last week. She drives a yellow FJ out of British Columbia, and it was a great interview, a lot of laughs, and just a great fun time. And she talked about growing as a lady to go overlanding and camping by herself, which is a lot of ladies are not comfortable doing that. We talked about that. We talked about a whole bunch of different topics, but it was just a lot of laughter, especially when you get her and Trisha together. It's constant laughing. Let's get back to Randall with Shadow Creek Overland. Welcome to the podcast, Randall.
Well, thanks for having me.
So first off, our listeners can find you and more about your adventures. You go by Shadow Creek Overland on Instagram. Mm-hmm. You're out of Northern Alberta, but you are four-wheeling all over Alberta and into some of the BC mountains and that too. Did you grow up in an exploring family?
I did not. The last camping trip, so I'm 33 now. The last camping trip I would have went on with family, I would have been about 12 years old. And besides that, the only other time I think I'd gone camping would have been 2013. I used to be really big into airsoft, and I went out to a 36-hour milsim game and over by Golden, BC. And yeah, that was the last time I've been camping up until about September 2021.
So what brought it on? What brought on this new love of adventure and camping and overlanding?
So the chick I was dating at the time there, we'd been together a couple years and things weren't so great. But I used to be into motorcycles before I really got into this because, everybody talked about freedom of the open road and whatnot. And had one of those as soon as I basically got out of airsofting. And then she couldn't be on the bike for anything more than an hour because Yamaha FZ10, it's a pretty comfortable bike for the rider, not so much for the passenger. So it was still COVID there when we had to be vaccinated to go to a restaurant or really do anything. So getting frustrated, basically going to work, coming home and not doing anything. So we started talking about looking at getting a truck and then a holiday trailer. As I ended up back in the oil field and I was making pretty good money again. So I looked at the Sierra All-Terrains, or AT4s, the new ones, and wasn't capable enough for the money. And then I was looking into power wagons, but at the advice of some local power wagon owners, they actually told me to find something smaller. My buddy there, he's been into Jeeps and he's got a 4Runner now. He told me to go buy a Colorado ZR2. And then if I wanted anything more, go buy a square body. We decided that I would get the ZR2 and put a little bit of money into it, the bed rack and whatnot. That's not the direction I ended up taking. And yeah, so we went out together. We had a couple adventures, and then she was supposed to get off work early on the first real overland trip that I was going on. But she didn't want to take work off early and just told me to go. And got out to, where was it, Kakwa Falls. That's where we ended up. Me, other buddy that got me into it, and some of his friends. And I immediately started losing my shit because I was going to be out of cell service for 2 days, and I knew that was going to be hell for me when I got back into cell service. And Rafi pretty much just grabbed my shoulders and said, look, man, it's going to be 2.5 days of peace and quiet. Just enjoy it. So that's where the relationship started falling apart because I absolutely enjoyed that peace and quiet. So
No.
It just, I fell in love with it on that trip. And then just through, I guess, kind of life events, lost a lot of friends in that relationship, and lots of people that I used to ride with there, and a really good buddy of mine there. Oh, I use humor in inappropriate times, but he decided he wasn't long for this world and wanted to be a chandelier instead. So we lost him twice, actually, Christmas Eve of 21, and then again New Year's Day at 22. And so with the end of the relationship in November, that the passing of my grandmother, lots of the people that I'd lost over the relationship, lots of people had moved to the island or back out east. Ended up finding myself with lots of time alone, and I don't do very well sitting idling. And it was a last ditch effort to try to save myself. And I basically threw a shit ton of money into this and spend more time outdoors. My friends that are into this, they're all married and whatnot, so they couldn't get out at the rate that I basically need to go out. So threw the bumper and the winch on, and what was it, 2020? I ended up going out 10 times between the beginning of the year to the end of the year. 2023, I spent 50 days out on trail between April 9th, after I'd gotten all the work done on my truck, to the end of the year, or end of last year.
That's a huge difference. And I want to
60 this year.
There you go. I do want to thank you for sharing that with us, because you and I have talked offline a little bit, and the outdoors is Mother Nature's medicine, I feel. And I think a lot of our listeners can relate to your story, because we've all been through stuff. You know, I talked, and I've been through stuff. I've had a few rough years, and for me, kayaking is my zen. I get out in the kayak and I just lose the rest of the world. And same thing with my dirt road church. And I'm sure you feel the same way. I call it dirt road church. And, you know, as I mentioned, I've had so many conversations with my father who's passed. I've had so many conversations with him in the cab of my truck on a dirt road that I can never have with him in person. And I do want to thank you for sharing that as well, too, because it's easy for us to think that we're all alone in whatever we're going through, but there's a lot of us going through that as well, too. What you've mentioned, it does radiate with myself, and I know radiate with other listeners, that, hey, this guy has gone through this and he's come through the other side. And why every day may not be cheery, but I know that some of my best camping trips have been my solo camping trips, and sitting around the fire or by yourself. Is it something that you, is it with just something like to clear your head doing these solo trips?
It's partially going out, clearing my head on these trips, but a buddy of mine there asked why I go out as often as I do, because I do a 2-week on, 1 week off schedule up at work. And I'm usually home 1 or 2 days on my days off. Otherwise, the rest of it's devoted to being in the mountains. So when he asked why I did it so much, said every single day I'm doing something. And then it was just like, you drive out somewhere and you sit and you look at a mountain. It's like, exactly. I drive somewhere and I'm looking out of the mountain. It's gotten to the point that for lots of people, going and doing what lots of us do is either strange, but it's so far out of the ordinary in today's society that just being in the mountains is, for many of us, is doing something.
Yep.
And then one of the things that I got into too as well is content creation. I'll spend a day out in the trail and I'll be laying in the back of the canopy working on some stuff, looking at pictures. And so it's a constant something for me to do. And then so I remain focused, and then I'm doing something that I'm enjoying. And then by the end of the 5-6 day trip that I'm on, I'm just like, okay, I'm ready to be a normal person again.
Refresh, reset, like a refresh, reset. Okay, I can go. I can start again and get back into it. Yeah.
Sometimes about 2 weeks of the regular life is about all I can take.
Yeah, that's true.
Not to go off topic again, but even my ex, she said a while ago that I taught her how nature is a healer and to get out yourself. And there's something to be said about going out and doing stuff yourself that a lot of people can't quite understand. I've had friends say that to me. It's like, how can you do this? I'd go crazy kind of idea. And I'm like, I'd go crazy if I didn't go out by myself every once in a while. And
I used to hate being outside. Like, for years, I'd actually loathed it. For a solid 20 years of my life, I did not like being outside. All through high school, I got the nickname Gimpy. I don't know if anybody that's listening to this is going to remember undergrads, but he was the guy that was always locked in his room and his campus dorm playing on the internet and playing computer games and everything like that. That was me. Shit, what was it? Like, I downloaded something like 14,000 songs on LimeWire off of dial-up.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it used to be lots of waking up in the middle of the night, Xbox, video games. I would even take my 360 or my PS3, whichever I felt at the time, up to camp with me to play when I was off, because I wouldn't go outside. I wouldn't go walk around. The most stuff I did at camp for the first 3 years that I was in the oil field is the mechanics used to get liquored up, jump in their 1-tons and whatnot, try to drive the cut lines behind the camp, get stuck. So then there's me pulling them out of the cut lines with a stagger at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Hey, that's so much fun. That was so much fun.
So that's also when I learned that 1-tons don't really do so great in the mud.
No.
Get some nice rocks and hard base, different story. But 1-tons in the mud, nah.
Service body trucks are just not made for mud.
No, it was just their personal trucks.
Oh, okay.
Like 6-inch lift, 35s. Yeah, they would just get buried. And then I guess there was only a couple times that I had to use a stagger. Otherwise, I had a stock 2011 Sierra Z71, tires, and I'd just float on top of whatever they got, take a run at it with a nice rope, and it'd come out most of the time.
See, you lost Trisha at mud because she is a mud. No, I'm going to reword that. She loves mud.
I just love mud.
Oh, I hate it.
Me too.
I'm like the only person I think in the 4x4 community that likes mud. I don't think I've met anyone else. You know what? I love mud. No one.
See, I won't shy away from it if it's on the trail, but if anyone's just, oh man, you should go through this mud. I'm like, no. Like, we used to have to wash our trucks up at camp, and you get a big tri-drive vac truck and pup. It's 4 hours to wash that thing.
Yeah.
So you do that once a week.
Yeah. That is a lot. That is a lot.
Yeah, I just kind of lost the love for washing vehicles, though. This thing gets washed my last day off just about every last day off, I go back on shift. So,
but it's different. It's your private vehicle, right? You got some pride to it, and you want it to be looking good. Hey, Trisha, you'll get a kick out of this. We haven't released this episode yet, but I was talking to Kyle and Dustin from Axle Busters, and these are the guys that are doing the Mega Truck series in Ontario or in Alberta, right?
Right.
And Dustin has got this Mega Truck. Is a Willys Jeep pickup, and the thing is just insane. Basically a mini monster truck, basically.
Yeah.
And even he said he doesn't like mud. And these guys are doing mega trucks. He's like, you got to clean it all after. It's hard on parts.
Yeah, see, because it's fun in the process, but
exactly.
Process. That's the only thing I think about. Yeah.
If you ever find yourself up this way on Canada Day or around Canada Day, there, the local hall there, they do mud bogs. Mud drag races and whatnot.
There we go. So you dumped a ton of money into this ZR2 over the last couple of years kind of idea. Let's talk about your ZR2. It's got a bunch of mods on it, and you got a bunch more mods coming too.
Yep. So pretty much what happened is I just walked into Four Wheel Auto in Edmonton there and threw my money at Steve and Dan. But so pretty much, truck started off as a 2020, I guess it is a 2020 Colorado ZR2. I bought it brand new Canada Day Canada Day 2021. So the truck was actually built and delivered to the dealership in March of 2020, but not to dump on my hometown or anything like that. Like, I don't mean in any disrespect, but nobody here lifts or drives lifted mid-sized trucks. There's one guy with a Tacoma, and then there's me.
Oil
So
patch, it's all big rigs, right? So
yeah, well, it's a bit of an oil town, mostly logging, actually.
okay.
Logging and farming. But so nobody here drives a lifted truck that's smaller than a half ton.
Wow.
And mid-sized trucks around here is grandpa's last gasp at owning a pickup before he's not allowed to drive anymore, and just doesn't see either the cost of the half tons these days or just wanted something a little smaller. Yeah, I walked in. I actually had a diesel 2021 on order. I put that order in May 3rd, and they said November or October by the time I'd get it. And then so I kept driving past this one, and at the time it actually almost looked like the Toyota pickup from Back to the Future. So that's what drew me into it a little bit, and walked in, looked at it, test drove it, liked that it had a bit more horsepower than the diesel, and it felt faster. And talked some numbers, and the MSRP was $57,000. Midnight Edition had some extras. And they come at, what they say, $50,700, and I said, what about $49,700 for someone that's serious and would be the third brand new truck he's bought off you? So I got my ZR2 for less than $50,000 during peak COVID price or vehicle pricing. So to me, that's a win.
Yep.
But yeah, so first thing I did was threw some LED headlights in there, Ultra or GTR lighting Ultra 2s. Watched a couple reviews, and they had the best beam pattern because brightness doesn't mean anything if it's not shining where you want it to.
Mm-hmm.
And after that was a set of Eibach leveling springs, AR Summit bumper, and a Warren VR10. I wanted something with Bluetooth because I figured I'd be having to do lots of recovery on my own. And I live by 2 is 1 and 1 is none, because if something ever happens to my cord, then I still have the Bluetooth functionality. If something happens to the Bluetooth functionality, I still have the cord.
Yes.
I ran the truck like that from about January 22 until about April of last year. And then I'd slowly been acquiring parts. And in April last year, we did the BDS 4-inch lift, level up suspension, coilover conversion kit. So that way I could set the ride height a little bit more to what I wanted. So we ended up with an extra inch of lift on there. Peak suspension, add-a-leaf, 589 rear shock relocation bracket. So now the lowest point of my truck is the pumpkins. The ZR2s actually had really poor shock placement.
Yeah.
And then I did 5 KMC KM724s in bronze, 5 Nitto Trail Grapplers, 35 12.5 17s. Now that's on the truck for driving lights is Steady Type X Pro 9-inch, 2 of those, 2 C4 flood ditch lights, Cali Rays ditch light brackets, 456 nitro gears in the diffs. And what else? Peak suspension upper control arms with Icon Delta joints. And guess we lost the picture of being able to see, but behind me is a set of King shocks that should hopefully give me 12 inches of travel in the front and for sure 12 in the rear. In March, I am getting a swing out bumper built for me by NS Off-Road Fabrication in Alberta Beach. Big one for that is actually price. So they come in with a swing out for a jerry can and a tire at, what did I think he said? It was either $2,200 or $2,500. I wanted the coastal off-road, but then I'd have to find a welder. Yep. And I don't want to cut up the sides or the box of my truck like that for the high clearance. Because now I'm starting to think if I get rear-ended, there goes my diff.
Yep.
And then he'll be doing skid plates for me. And then eventually, because these do come with rock sliders, they are body mounted, not frame mounted or weld on. But they've been working so far, so that's probably going to be the last thing I do to the truck when they get a little beat up. And Calgary Spring and Axle, I think it is there. They're going to be building me a custom set of long travel leaf packs. So it'll handle the weight a little bit better, get rid of that 4-inch block, have less axle wrap. And at some point a snorkel, and then potentially the AV high marks, which are cutout fender flares, so then I could stuff 37s on this. Maybe 38s if I have the clearance, but there's only going to be so much that I want to do. It's still the V6 at the end of the day. The 456s help, but it's still a V6.
Yeah, but it's really neat. I will ask you.
RSI smart cap. I forgot about that.
Yes. Now, are you sleeping in the cap? You don't have a tent? Yes. Okay.
I sleep in the cap. It's a 5'2" box because I didn't get the extended cap with the long box, and I am 6'2". So fortunately, I did pay a little bit of attention in math class, not enough to really go for far, but you sleep on an angle. My platform is 80 inches long. I basically heads in the driver corner of the box, and my feet are in the passenger corner of the box, and I could actually sleep completely straight.
Perfect.
No bend in the knees or anything. Perfect. That worked out. It's a little awkward. I got to get some body pillows to stuff against the side of the cap so it feels like I'm leaning against something. I always sleep against the wall. But I usually pass out pretty good inside the canopy. And I got a diesel heat. Excuse me. A diesel heater. Lots of the new ones there, they have Bluetooth control. So no more getting out at minus 15 in my boxers because I'm either sweating or too cold.
Did you? I was considering going that route with my Tacoma and going to the canopy and building a sleeping platform in the box. But I've got thinking about it this summer while I was lying in my rooftop tent with all the windows open and nice breeze coming through at 40 degrees or whatever it was, about how hot it would be in a canopy, especially a black canopy.
When you're in the mountains, it isn't too bad.
Yeah, I guess.
Like once you get into the higher elevations. There haven't been too many nights where I've been disgustingly hot. The only time would have been around radium, but that is because we were trying to go up during that fire, actually, the day that it started there. And I had to go on Facebook and get some people to send some message to the O'Neills and who else was it? Dan Kutcher and buddy there, Braden, because they were heading up on the way up the mountain, and we had a helicopter land beside us. And like, where are you guys going? Well, we're going to the top of the mountain. No, you ain't. You know anybody else that's up there? And I'm like, yeah, there's going to be 2 ZR2s and a Tacoma. And Tacoma didn't like that trip. It ended up shooting the fan through the rad, so he had to get towed out. But yeah, that was, I couldn't imagine how sketchy that would have been.
Yeah, especially up there at the fire.
Everywhere we ended up, we were getting kicked out by like the fire marshals or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, the place we ended up, it was humid. Like we didn't even really leave radium, but it just ended up being humid and you could not breathe without inhaling mosquitoes. So I had the canopy closed because I got a couple USB chargeable fans that I just hang in front of the thing and let it blow in cool air because it's getting down around 15 degrees or so at night, and it's pretty good. But so I closed the canopy, and then mosquitoes were still getting in. So by about hour 3 of waving this USB rechargeable fan in the air, killing the mosquitoes because they'd get sucked through and smacked by the blades, I tapped out and I slept in my truck. I started it through the AC on, and like,
I can't blame you on that. So how were you routing your hose from your diesel heater into the canopy? Just through one of the windows, but those windows are pop-up, aren't they?
No, I'm not too sure how like the Alucab does it or the GFC. I can't remember the other one that makes them, but so this is the adventure model. So it has the metal gull-wing doors instead of the glass ones like the Sport.
Right.
So what I do is now I have a 25-foot 3-inch hose that I just clamp to the output to the heater there, and then I run it underneath the truck and up and in between the cab and the canopy, and then I just pop it through the front window.
Okay.
So in the future, though, I was watching somebody there. He was talking about how like really good ways of getting heat into these, and you can get. I got a screenshot of it on my phone. A 3-inch deck cap, and they're used on boats. For whatever purpose, but 3-inch deck cap, you can drill the hole in the canopy, bolt it in, seal it up so nothing gets in, and then it's like either a quarter turn or a half turn and it comes out. You shove the hose in there and now you got heating the canopy, and I'm going to eventually maybe get my old man to weld me up. See lots of people put their diesel heaters on a stand that hooks onto the tire.
Yep.
So I was thinking about doing that, and then I can run a shorter line and whatnot.
It's funny you mentioned you had that saved in your phone, because I've got a picture like that saved on mine as well too. And I think it's a brilliant idea. It's like a quarter turn. You pop the cap off, you put the hose in, and you're good to go. I have no idea where I saw it, probably Facebook or something like that. But it seems like a brilliant idea, I think, for sure.
Yeah, so I figured that'd kind of be the best way to do it. I'll have to see, because I'm trying to limit the amount of things that I have in the canopy.
Yeah.
Because going back to me being tall, I need more room to get on my hands and knees and move around and put clothes on. My current platform that I have now, I got to drop it by about 4 inches, but I want to do something a little better. And then, I'm going to start running into spatial issues. So I was thinking about building a couple mounts to put the traction boards on the outside, which kind of sucks in a way, because I was enjoying having the clean look. I didn't really have anything hanging off the side, no big tent or anything like that. But I guess all good things come to an end, and I'm going to have to start going a little bit for the Broverlander look.
You don't have to be embarrassed to look like an overlander. It's okay.
It's not that I was embarrassed. It just looks sleek and clean.
Yeah, I know.
Like I like the look, but then I don't know, I see too many people driving around and their traction boards are clean. But I will say one thing that I noticed, like, this is only a town of about 2,700 people, and I have actually started seeing there's a guy out here now. He's got a Ford Ranger there. He's got a rooftop tent and rack with some traction boards and whatnot on it. And I don't know, it's probably coincidence, but I hope that I was a driving factor behind that. So
I'm sure, because it's become such a popular thing now, and everybody sees these cool decked out vehicles, and I have to admit, it does look good. But I do get your clean look idea. So Tricia, did you happen to notice, I saw you smiling when he was talking about his winch, his Bluetooth winch, and how if your remote control fails, he's still got the Bluetooth. Tricia just went through this a while ago, where her winch failed because of the connection at the remote control. So I'm just throwing it out to her there, that there is options that if you do break down to the trail, go with the Bluetooth.
Yeah, it was definitely an eye opener. I'm like, okay, this is why we use Bluetooth now. I need to upgrade.
I'm pretty sure there's third market options that'll pair to your phone or something like that, because actually there is a recall on my winch. Now, Warren will send me out the Bluetooth module that will hook up to my phone and everything like that. But what I have to do is I have to cut the wires inside the remote, send them the picture before they'll send it to me.
Oh, really?
Because there's some sort of corrosion issues where it might just turn on. But I leave my winch in free spool anyway, so if it's not sitting there under load, I don't see it doing anything
not a big
until it kills the battery of the truck. But I like having the remote, and their corrosion issues have led to people dropping them in the mud, and this thing doesn't leave the truck.
Yes, that's why. I guess that's why. There we go.
Oh, is that what you did?
All that mud and water. Yeah, basically it corroded. So when I was on the trail, well, before I went on the trail, I usually do like a little inspection before I go out on the day. Winch was working fine. Okay, sure. And then once I got on the trail, going to reattach it after a couple of recoveries, I noticed that, oh, there's corrosion, there's mold there. And then when I looked, one of my little sprockets were broken off. So I couldn't attach it and use it afterwards. Couldn't recover that much the rest of the day, but I did end up finding the part. So I could still get the part and then fix it and be able to use the one. We'll be looking into remote wireless.
There we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely a lot better. Yep. And like you said, when you're either by yourself or if you're it's just easier, but just easier to deal with when you're sitting in your rig and you're like, I can just remote start. I can have this big wire hanging and dragging with you. Yeah.
Tricia, I just noticed you're sitting there stroking your beard just like I do.
Yeah. I think I got it from you. It's like watching you and it's just like monkeys.
I've done it a couple of times, but I don't think you guys can see it. I'm pretty sure my picture froze.
Yeah.
I'm like thinking, and I'm like, yeah.
Yes, interesting. Very good.
ZR2. Why not a Tacoma?
I like Chevy. Chevys have always been good to me. There's always a GM dealership in a small town. So if something does happen, then hopefully parts are closer. I can't sit in a Tacoma or even a 4Runner. Harkening back to my buddy Raffy there, the last trip we went on, for shits and giggles, he was doing something outside, and I got in and I sat in it. They come over and started talking to me. And then so I went to slide the seat back further. And then I'm like, I was looking behind the seat. Was there something blocking it? And he said, no, that's as far back as it goes. I just pretty much
Yeah.
So I like my knees are almost at like a 90 degree. And I'm like, man, I couldn't do this. My buddy Rolito, he's got a Tacoma. He's 6'3". I don't know how the hell he does it. I also have 36-inch inseam, so I'm more leg than anything else. So that's probably a contributing factor to it.
Yeah, the Tacoma seating is, a lot of people will raise the front of the seat up to try and help that out a bit. Apparently it helps, but yeah, Tacoma seating absolutely sucks for sure. But the ZR2 is actually a really good platform, I think. They've got the dual lockers.
That's a nice thing.
Exactly. So yeah, the ZR2 is definitely an interesting package. It's something that the Tacomas have taken over the small vehicle overlanding scene, but there's so many other good vehicles out there, like the ZR2. The Frontier, I think, is a really interesting truck. The Ranger, there's a lot of other good options out there than Tacomas.
Yeah, so like I did look into some other mid-sized trucks and everything like that. Just I was pretty set on the ZR2, but to me, the thing that really got it, so I will admit, there was a solid 10, 17 years where if you wanted a mid-sized truck and you wanted to off-road, it was essentially a Tacoma or nothing. Because the first-gen Colorado's torsion bar, that's not the best thing to take off-road. And then it was just you didn't have Tacoma money, you bought a Frontier. And not that there's anything wrong with the Frontiers, it's just I've noticed with my buddy, he has a 22. I thought the aftermarket offerings for the ZR2 were bad. Holy hell. I'm closer to having Tacoma levels of aftermarket support than that. Granted, the cheapest shocks that you could put in this thing are the OEM Multimatics. It's $700 a pop.
And they're not that great of a shock either.
They're not bad. When I went out on the Kakwa Falls trip, I was keeping up to my buddy there. I can't remember what he had at the Jeep. He's the guy that has the Tacoma now. He had a Jeep for a little bit. And yeah, he put some money into that thing. And I was keeping up to him not too bad. And then I was asking buddy on the Icon shocks and his Tacoma. You're back there's away. And he's just, man, this is rough. I'm sitting on little 31-inch tires at 20 PSI. And it's doing pretty good.
Yeah, they seem to be doing okay. I have heard lots of things about
though.
That's what I was just going to say. I've heard lots of things about them leaking, but
so my coilovers couldn't show up at a more perfect time because my driver front starts to seep a little bit when it's hot. Like you cycle it a little bit and whatnot. My passenger one there, this is a brand new development as of today. I had it in the shop. I was doing some stuff on the truck to get it ready for tomorrow, and it left a puddle of shock fluid. And the bushing in my passenger rear is worn out. Now, fortunately, a company called Level Up Suspension has come out finally with a rebuild kit for them. It's something like, what it would be, $1,000 for the kit, and whatever it costs to do it, but you're still looking at half of what it would be to replace them. And yeah.
But now you're going with the Kings. So let's talk about that. You have done the worst thing possible by putting a drop lift in that truck.
Well, that's what I'm told. It's supposed to be the mall crawler special, but I I hear it a little bit outside of because I'm more active in the ZR2 groups and whatnot.
Yeah.
Some people outside of them, they have their things to say and whatnot, but I noticed the vast majority of people that are really shitting on me for having a drop bracket lift don't go out as often as I do. So I just take their criticism as, okay, you're that guy that goes out once a week from May till October when McLean Creek's open. Last year I did what you do in about 3 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So your criticism means nothing. To me, I looked at it as, okay, you go buy a set of Kings and you crank the preload on them another inch, 2 inches usually. Lots of guys are getting them up to 3 inches because they want that lift. Now you're really changing your droop points. You're running into issues where you're potentially going to get some CV bind because now your angles your geometry of the CVs aren't so great. And now because you have so much preload on it,
you get a rough ride.
You're three-wheeling lots of places in addition to a rough ride.
Yep.
Is you maxed out every inch of lift you go on preload, you lose an inch of droop.
Mm-hmm.
So now, you end up three-wheeling lots of places. And I've seen people I'm not trying to put down Toyota any means. It's just what I've seen here. But I've seen lots of people on Instagram doing some local trails around the Wipers area on a 3-inch lift and 33s, 34s. They make it look hard because of that.
Yep.
I have friends that have done those trails in stock Tacomas and whatnot, and they have had such an easier time because the front end will actually articulate.
There's something to be said about that for sure. And in reality, by the time you're running 35s now, you haven't really lost any of that ground clearance that all these people are talking about losing with a drop bracket lift.
Well, there's still some pretty good ground clearance. Like I've rung my front skid plate a few times here and there, but that's why you have skid plates.
Exactly.
But the thing I think lots of people don't really realize is, sure, you crank up the coils, you push the control arms down, you get that little bit of clearance, you're still running into issues with your rear axle.
Yep. And at least you cleared that up. You mentioned earlier that ZR2s have a horrible issue with the rear shocks hanging down so low.
Terrible.
And the 589, and there's a couple other companies that have these shock relocation brackets, and that seems to be clearing up all that issue for sure.
Oh, it's probably my second favorite thing that I've done on this truck, because there's a couple trails that I could have done where it would have been super easy stock, hung up on the stupid shock mounts.
Yeah.
And for $600, it's probably the best thing you could do to a ZR2.
Yeah.
Regardless of how extreme you want to take it. If you want to get the AEV 33 trim kit and run 33s on completely stock suspension and you get those, it'll make your life so much easier. Mountains and Memories there, the O'Neills. I don't know what they...
I was going to bring them up earlier because they have a wonderful rig as well, and I want to get them on the show too. And they're running
actually going to be my recommendation.
Well, we'll talk about that in a bit then, because they've got a great ZR2 as well, and they're running 35s, I think, as well too.
37s now.
37s, okay.
Yeah, they played around. And they managed to, with the high marks there, they managed to do all the trimming and all the clearancing and everything like that you need to get 37s. Dan Kuchar, I think that's his last name anyways there. They go out and do lots of stuff together, and he built up his rig there, similar to theirs. But for the ZR2 world, for the longest time, it used to be Alpha ZR2, and then, who was it? I think Ready Rig 4x4 and Mountains and Memories are the top two basically ZR2s out there that aren't running the Kibitech setup. Yep. But the Kibitech setup, something like $45,000 in parts alone.
Minor detail.
That's lottery money.
Yeah, exactly.
If I win the lottery, I'm buying one of these and shipping it off to them.
The ZR2, when they first came out, there wasn't much available for them, but it's surprising how much aftermarket support there is for the ZR2s. You're talking 589, the AEV. That's a whole nother ball game since AEV stepped their toes into that market. And with the Bison and all their aftermarket products, Peak Suspension is the other company that has come on board. They got some really nice stuff on their suspension stuff. I was looking at ZR2 before I went to the Tacoma. It fell on my lap, and the pricing was perfect, so it worked out. But yeah, the aftermarket support for the ZR2s has really come on board the last 3 years, 4 years.
I'd want to say the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Even when I got this in 2021, it was pretty rough. Like when I bought this truck, I don't think the 589 rear shock relocation brackets were out yet.
Okay. Yeah. So the last couple of years, then yeah.
CBI, ARB, I think Relentless and Fab and Chassis Unlimited were the only ones that were doing bumpers besides AEV.
Yep.
But they were way down on the bottom of the pecking order. Like you wanted one of those during COVID, you were waiting months.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was the shipping. I got the ARB bumper because Four Wheel Auto was doing ARB Old Man Emu order, and they threw it on the pallet for $25. That's what it cost to get it to me. And I always laugh because I wanted the CBI bumper, but then they're in Idaho Falls, Idaho. They will ship that bumper down to, I can't remember what place it was in Florida I was looking at for shits and giggles, but it is 37 hours. They will do it for free. 17 hours to Edmonton when I was living there at the time, $400 US.
Yeah.
So it was just like, can't do that. There's got to be a better way. And then this was before Raven Truck Accessories started carrying CBI. And but yeah, even when I first got into it, it was pretty tough. The GM performance performance parts, high angle upper control arms and Peak, they were it for the longest time. And then I'm pretty sure Nick started Peak simply for the fact that there was essentially nothing.
I listened to a podcast with him a while ago, and it was actually really interesting. And how he's talking about how he started it up, and he was just doing a little bit of stuff here and there. And then he saw this opening where there was nothing for the ZR2s, and I can start doing. He started off on a small scale, and then it just totally blown into now where he's offering these coilover kits and all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah, because I think he's the fourth shock manufacturer.
Yep.
And because it's King's Radflow, Arizona Desert Shocks, and now whatever Peak's coming out with. So there's no 5100s. I don't really want to mention it, but like Rough Country doesn't even make shitty shocks for these.
But it is for people that are considering going into a ZR2. The marketplace has really stepped it up in the last few years, for sure. It definitely doesn't have as much as it doesn't have as much as the Toyota and the Jeep world, but it's coming along slowly.
The best way to describe the ZR2 aftermarket, everything that you could possibly want is there, but it is basically all top of the line stuff.
Yep.
So like we have long travel kits in the form of Baja kits. You have King's Radflow, Arizona Desert Shocks, and now with what Peak's coming out with, those are all four of those are premium shocks.
Yep.
You have the relocation brackets. It's one company that does it, but it's there. Same with the long travel I was talking about. The options for bumpers has gotten better. There's 7 or 8 companies that are doing bumpers now. None of them are the nice, cheap. You can't get a nice Smitty built bumper for $600 that you can for the Jeeps, but the nice stuff is there. Actually, I'm pretty sure there's more companies doing bumpers now. 589's doing skid plates. AEV has their skid plates. CBI has their skid plates. CBI's getting into the rock sliders too. But one thing lots of people don't really think about, talk to a fab shop. If you can't get something, you can probably go to a fab shop and it'll potentially be cheaper. I got quoted $800 for skid plates because skid plates for the BDS trucks don't exist. A regular set of skid plates I'm looking at $1,500, $2,000. I gotta paint them, but that's just about half the cost. A rear bumper with a swing out and everything that I want. Regular bumpers like $1,200, powder coated, I think. But when you get the dual swing out there, that's like an extra $2,700.
Yeah.
I'm getting the bumper and the swing out for $200 to $500 less. I'm going to have to paint it myself, but I'll paint something to save $2,000.
Minor detail, right?
Yeah. Like I make good money, but shit, man, I ain't rich.
Exactly.
You can't just throw like an American Express diamond or platinum or whatever the hell it is at a shop and get it all done in one shot. It's been a process. Beaver makes springs, Alcan makes springs, though Alcan's custom order, but they've done enough that they pretty much got that in the bag now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
so if somebody was going to buy a ZR2 and wanted to get into some not like super hardcore off-roading, but wanted to get more into it, what would some of the first modifications on the ZR2 that you'd recommend?
I guess it depends if you're going out with people or if you're going alone. Like the first thing I did was bumper and winch. Mm-hmm. So I will admit, for a solid maybe 70, 80% of the stuff that I do, I'm overbuilt by a fairly decent margin. So if you want a good ZR2 that you're going to be able to go out and do just about anything, like none of the crazy stuff like Dragon's Back, going to the top of the world in McLean, a set of 33s, if you want to just do a leveling kit, or if you want to do one of the 2 coilover conversion kits to get an extra 1.5 inches, the trim kit or 420 Motors has actually a really nice fender trim kit. Mm-hmm. Not trim kit, but trim that you can do. You re-drill some new holes, and it looks a little more factory, like it was supposed to come that way. But then, yeah, you can fit 33s on, 285, 770, 17s on stock wheel and tire, and you will be able to do a lot. And then obviously you can do Kings. Colorado Canyon enthusiasts come out with a new rear shock relocation bracket that you can run 12-inch shocks, 14-inch shocks with a set of Devers. You spend about $5-6 on parts, maybe less, depending on your budget. And yeah, you would have a pretty decent truck, because the front locker from factory is huge. Absolutely huge.
I've thought about that, and I don't use my Tacoma hard enough, I think, lots of times to use a front locker, but there's times where it definitely would have been, like, not to use it all the time, but there's definitely times that it would have come in handy for sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty selective of it, and I don't really turn the wheel all that hard because I don't want to be snapping CVs or tie rods. But I don't know how familiar lots of listeners are to the McLean Creek area, but my ZR2 did Widowmaker stock with 1,600 kilometers on the odometer. Now, lots of people are probably going to doubt that, but if they want to go back and look through my Instagram, the video is there.
Yep.
The truck was 100% stock. The only thing that was done to it was a crack in the windshield on the way out there. 9 PSI in the tires, though. I will mention that. But yeah, 100% stock.
I was watching that video. Yeah, I was watching that video.
A crack in the windshield. That sounds like a Jeep thing.
I got it fixed, and then I got another one now that has spread. So yeah, she's windshield time now.
You just had a name change on Instagram, and you used to be Kamikaze Overland, and now you're Shadow Creek Overland. Do you want to fill us in on that change?
Yeah, so I got the Kamikaze nickname at a hockey tournament in Lloydminster when I was 17, and not too sure how many hockey fans there are out there, but the assistant coach on my team was actually Shane Doan's cousin. And after pretty much what had happened there is I went to hit a guy and he was laughing at me, and I played center and I was on the penalty kill and told the guy that next chance I get, I'm absolutely going to destroy him. The linesman's looking at me and he's just like, hey, you're not going to do that, are you? That's just, oh yeah, watch this. So when the draw puck gets shot down the ice, he goes around the left side of the net and I come flying around the right side and I absolutely bowled him over. Biggest hit that I'd ever laid playing hockey at that time, and I've thrown some decent hits. I wasn't a big guy, like I just 33 hit 200 pounds, but I was fast. So speed helps a lot. So I started hitting harder and harder, or and more big hits. And when I come into practice, I think the next Tuesday after that tournament, the coach there, he put kamikaze on the stall. And then also Dean there, he had half baked on his stall, but that's for a different reason.
That's a whole other story.
That's a whole other story. But so basically, since I was 17, I was running under the kamikaze whatever. So kamikaze 737, lots of my online stuff because of the numbers in my first, middle, and last name. And I just ran with it for years and years and years and years. And then I lost my grandfather, what would have been June 4th, 2016. And as I've gotten older, lots of people have drawn comparisons between, or similarities, I guess it would be, between he. And I thought, now that I moved back out here, I am a way different person than I used to be back, even 3-4 years ago. I felt that it was time to move on from stuff in the past and whatnot. So I ended up with Shadow Creek Overland because my grandfather would always name whatever he was into as Shadow Creek and whatever. This is kind of a story about how revered my grandfather was. I just moved to Southgate Tower in Edmonton, November 2011. Went back up, did a 2-week shift. I think I come back right towards the end of November. I lived on the 21st floor, like last floor before the penthouse. Hated it. I couldn't go out onto the balcony to have a cigarette for 6 months. I do not like heights. But it's about 11:30 in the morning, or in the evening, and I find myself on the elevator with this absolutely massive elderly native guy. And so he looks at me a couple times and whatnot. And he's going up to the 20th floor. He said, "You just moved here, right?" I said, "Yeah." "Where'd you move from?" I said, "I moved from High Prairie." "Who's Stan Tanaka to you?" I was like, "That'd be my grandfather." And he takes one step across the elevator, picks me up, and is hugging me, elated that he had grandchildren.
Oh.
And he knew all, and just me and my grandfather there looked fairly similar. I looked more like my old man, but just he looked at me, High Prairie, Stan. I was his grandkid, and he was elated. Like, my grandfather was one of the kind of people that if you didn't like him, it said more about you than him.
Yeah. No, that's great.
And so I figured in a way it would be paying homage to him. So that's what I decided on doing. I threw a poll up whether to leave it the same, change it to Shadow Creek Overland or Cluster Truck Overland. Obviously, it's a little bit of a play on words because that's what I am sometimes. I have gone on day trips that I got home 3 days later.
That is half the fun of it. So here's another question for you. What is your favorite time of year?
I like the fall.
Yes, me too.
So I like when it gets a little cooler at night because then I can run the diesel heaters. The mosquitoes are sleeping a little bit, though I used to haul fuel in Kamloops, and I used to go up to the Logan Lake copper mine.
Yep.
My birthday, 21 or 20, it would have been 2021. It was +5 in January, and I killed a mosquito at the Suncor refinery. I did not like that.
It's not
Granted,
usually it's usually not that bad, but
well, it was -45 sitting on top of that mountain in the wind, and I could tell you I was enjoying the +5 a little more in Kamloops.
That's true.
It was miserable.
Oh, that's true.
But yeah, definitely fall. A little cooler at night. Most of the bugs are gone. You get early into the fall there, the bears aren't really starving and whatnot. In the beginning of May there, I'd actually, what would it have been? Either the end of April or beginning of May last year there, I actually shot a grizzly bear in the neck with a bear banger because I was sleeping in a tent. I used to sleep in a tent in the box of my truck.
Yep.
And whatever reason, like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, I woke up paranoid as shit. I put some clothes on. I have a 2000 lumen flashlight on my rifle. Put a mag in it, rack the chamber, and turn the flashlight on. I'm sleeping in this absolutely big clearing. It's probably like half kilometer either side, nothing but field until you get to the trees.
Yeah.
So a little bit to the, I want to say northeast, I seen eyes looking at me in the bush. And granted, it's about a half kilometer away or whatnot, but I was just like, I'm not liking this. So I ripped everything out of the back seat, grabbed the rifle, grabbed the shotgun, threw it in the back, threw my sleeping pad in the back, and I went to bed. About 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning or so, I woke up, started getting ready, seen some deer up in that direction, so I figured, you know what, maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I packed up after I had something to eat. I made it about a kilometer down the road. There's a grizzly bear.
Oh my God.
Didn't like that.
You sure you want to come camping with us, Tricia? I've been lucky. I haven't seen any grizzlies. I've seen lots of blacks and browns, but never any grizzlies. So,
well, it was funny because I used to haul oil to Kakwa Secure from up in this area, and my buddy was just like, "Oh yeah, no, we're going here," and I'm like, "Okay, what are we going to do about bears?" He says, "Oh, there's no bears out here." Yeah, there is. He's just like, "They have grizzlies out there," and he's just like, "No." And I shit you not, the timing couldn't be any more perfect. But there's a grizzly bear as I'm on the phone with Buddy eating a dead moose in the ditch. And I was just like, "Oh shit, look at this." And he was just like, "What?" There's a grizzly bear eating a dead bull moose in the ditch. Where are you? Oh, about 15 kilometers north of the turnoff to go to Kakwa. What? Yeah, man. There's bears out here. Last year, 2022, between Highway 750 or 88 down. So on Highway 986 between 88 and I don't know what highway it is. I'm going to say where the DFI pulp mill is over by Peace River. I counted 76 black bears.
Holy jeez.
That is about a 2-hour drive.
What?
There be bears out here. So actually, this is going to be funny. I started dabbling into Reddit a little bit, just learn more stuff about Overland. And there seems to be lots of people from all corners of the globe that post and talk about stuff in there.
Yeah.
So there was a topic about rooftop tents and whatnot. And somebody in South Africa started shitting on people in North America for sleeping in canopies and rooftop tents. And, I've done the plains of Africa and I've been fine. I looked it up. Between the tigers and the lions and the jaguars and all the shit that's going to on land that's going to want to eat you over there, it's less than like 30,000 things. Between Alberta and BC alone, there's 250,000 black bears. And like we're talking the whole of Africa.
They just
Africa is huge. Would you just have Alberta and BC? 250,000 black bears. That's not wolves. That's not coyotes. Though coyotes are minor. I used to chase them out of the back alley in the city with a machete.
Yeah.
Then you got your grizzlies, and then you have your mountain lions.
And the Canadian geese. The was that the Canadian ninja chicken?
Cobra chickens.
Cobra chickens. Yes, cobra chickens.
Yeah. Actually, that's my favorite bird.
That's demented.
You just gotta see them when they're young. You gotta rescue one that hatched really late and is getting attacked by all the other things. And then you bring it home and you put a bunch of lettuce in the tub and let it swim around eating lettuce. And then 2 days later, when you go to take it to the wildlife shelter, it feels like you just lost a pet.
Oh.
Yeah, okay, I can see that.
He was adorable. You'd be sitting down, and and if you had it on the couch, you'd lean back a little bit, and you'd run up your chest and like nuzzle in between your neck and your shoulder. And I'm like, man, I am not gonna want to give this thing up, dude.
That is totally different than any Canadian goose I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have nothing but wholesome goose stories. My great uncle. He's still kicking. Had an injured goose land in his dugout there, and he nursed it back to health and whatnot. And he actually had to build a second doghouse because it kicked the dog out of the doghouse. And then, you'd go over there. I was pretty young, but you'd go over there, and Uncle Joe would be walking around the yard, and here's Jeff walking around behind him. Why named him Jeff? I don't know, but it was Jeff the goose.
Jeff the goose. That's so funny.
And that's different X, but when we had that goose for 3 days there, that's what we named him. Jeff the second.
Jeff the second. That too.
Speaking of names, Tricia.
Yeah. have you named your truck? Do you have a name?
2020 Chevy Colorado ZR2.
Like, that's what it gets. That's what it is.
Oh, there's so I've only ever named one vehicle.
Yeah.
And just in case that person ever listens to this podcast for whatever reason, I can't go into it. Buddy's girlfriend, when we were playing Kings once, almost let it slip. That was the closest that it's got to ever. If you guys want to message, it's bad. It's bad how my car got its nickname. But it's also funny in a sense too.
Okay. So it has a name. Oh, okay.
We'll leave it at that.
That's probably for the best.
Yeah. Trisha, did you want to ask the last question?
Sure. So I know you talked a little bit about it earlier, but what guests would you like to hear on the 4x4 Canada podcast?
For me, it's got to be Sean and Amanda O'Neill. If they can both do it at the same time, Mountains and Memories.
Yep.
For Alberta exploration, Alberta's or ZR2 content, they're by far it. Like,
yep. I agree 100%. I have met them once before at the Vernon, BC. We had a little overland get together, and the rig was absolutely awesome. I drilled over the rig, but when I met them in person, sitting around the campfire, and we're talking about different trips, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we've been there, and you got to do this and this," and it's just so many areas that I've wanted to see that they have been to, and and such a nice couple as well. They are super, super nice and just chill, relaxed people. And I can't say enough good things about them. We've actually had somebody else mention them as well too. I think it was Tasha, the Just a Jeep girl. She mentioned them as well too. So I do have to reach out to them and get them on board. Their rig is, like you say, they're running 37s on their ZR2 now, and it's a beautiful looking rig, like a metal or a dark gray kind of idea, or dark silver,
satin steel metallic.
There we go.
It's actually the color that I had ordered.
See, glad that you didn't, because then you guys would be matching.
It's the 21, so it would have had a different front end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so front end would have looked a little different. I probably still would have ended up with the smart cap. As soon as I had that experience with the Grizzly, I was just, I'm not sleeping in a tent. I want steel between me and the elements. I'll admit I'm a pussy still when it comes to being outside. I don't want to get eaten alive. Even if it's a grizzly bear, I got cross mags in my WS MCR and a 12 gauge. So at the very least, I'm just hoping that it buys me enough time so I could go out swinging kind of thing. But,
so RSI, if RSI is listening, anyone from RSI is listening to this, feel free to use this as advertising to sell more caps. And as long as we keep us in mind in the future, both Randall and myself and Trisha keep us in mind in the future.
I actually just followed him on Instagram, hoping I could get some features.
There we go. If you don't want to be eaten by grizzlies, buy an RSI smart cap.
Because I think so. Like, obviously, a grizzly bear is going to be 1,200 pounds or something like that, and I think the static weight on these is 770 pounds. But that's going to be getting to be some. Obviously, that's underrated for what it can really hold. Maybe you'll get some deformation and everything like that, but I don't see a grizzly bear being right up on top of your truck.
Probably not.
It could happen, but I still like my odds. Like, I don't see it getting ripped off by one. There's not really many areas that it could grab. I don't know. It's a great level of security. Like, it's gotten to the point where I'm actually more worried about people out in the backcountry than I am wildlife. But then I'm usually out on weekdays because of my work schedule. So when I got somebody rolling up into my camp at 2:30 on Tuesday morning, grabbing the rifle and looking through the back window, who the hell are you and what the hell do you want? Keep going by? Okay. I'm going back to
keep going. Yeah, keep going. I actually had to laugh when somebody mentioned one of the pros of running in a rooftop tent is because it'd be harder for the bears to get into. And I'm like, have you ever seen a bear climb a tree? Like, they are fat.
I can see it for like black bears and everything like that, but like a grizzly bear is 9 feet tall. The roof line of my truck, I think, is something around 7. So my arms are about 3-ish feet long each, maybe a little more. I don't know, somewhere in that ballpark. But I just stood up to my truck and I put my hand all the way up, and then I wrist at 90-degree angle. I'm like, it could just reach through the tent and grab me if it really wanted to. If it was curious enough.
Yeah, it could.
Because what is this? 2/10 thick stainless steel? Something like that. It's fairly thick. It's almost 1/4 inch.
Hopefully you don't get any bears coming through.
I got bear bangers because at the end of the day, I really don't want to have to kill something.
No.
Just because I'm out there. But worst comes to worst, then is what it is, I guess.
Half the time, these animals are just as scared of us as we are of them. Most animals, anyways. Yeah.
That's why I like the fall there. Things early fall, anyways. Things aren't usually as hungry.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Cool. Once again, we are talking to Randall from Shadow Creek Overland. You can check him out on Instagram at Shadow Creek Overland, and all the great drone videos and photos of his ZR2 and all his travels all over Western Canada. And hopefully, maybe one day when our schedules do line up, we can meet somewhere and hit some of that alpine together. Because
I wouldn't mind that. Depending, actually, have you ever wanted to do the Mackenzie?
I have always wanted to do Mackenzie. You think about doing that one?
I have. I put it in my days off application. We are trying to plan it. What do we got? I got a diesel Gladiator. There's going to be a solid front axle swap Toyota Pre-Runner. Now, I know that those things are supposed to be 2-wheel drive, but he's putting a manual transmission and a solid front axle in it. So then he's going to have that. There's going to be another ZR2, a Discovery 3. And then myself. So we're trying to look around 5-6 people and whatnot. Yep. Have everybody have chainsaws so we can rip through all the deadfall as quick as possible.
Yep.
And yeah, I've
definitely keep it in mind. Keep me in mind, because it is something I've always thought about doing. It, of course, depends on work and stuff like that. So
yeah, that's always the big thing, because we're planning. I took an extra 10 days off. I'm hoping we can get it done all together in 2 weeks, and then I can be back home getting ready to go to work. Hoping the extra trucks, as I've watched the Storytell Now video. I don't know if you guys had them on, but But yeah, so he had started off with 4 the last time and then ended up with 3, and it took them 11 days. So I'm hoping push hard, triple or double the manpower and whatnot. You burn through it a little quicker.
Yeah, basically a couple guys walking through ahead of time with chainsaws and yeah, it always seems to have all that windfall, and it's just every year always has so much windfalls. There are going to be no trees left there pretty quick.
Yeah, I saw they had that fire go through there, so that definitely doesn't help.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Like I say, once again, Randall from Shadow Creek Overland. Check him out on Instagram. Really want to thank you for joining on with us tonight and taking the time. And
yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Been a great conversation. So one thing I do want to mention is that he did contact us about being a guest on the show through our website. And if any of our listeners are interested in being on the show or have somebody that they'd like to recommend, by all means, give us a shout on DM on Instagram or via our website. There is a form there to fill out, and we would love to hear from all kinds of people. But we want to thank you for taking that time to reach out to us, Randall, because
very welcome.
It's neat having some different vehicles on here too, as well. Not all Toyotas and Tacomas and Jeeps. So
yeah,
I think it was good for me too, because I'm doing something that's going to reach a wide range of people, and I'm a very one-on-one person. So like one of the hardest things for me to do was meet new people to go out and get into this. So 50 days on trail last year, 10 days I had people with me.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Be a little more personable and get out and talk to more people.
For sure. And hopefully we can maybe do something next year and go from there.
Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.